What's going on, MMA fans? Welcome to another episode of the Deadlock Podcast, fresh on our new home right here on YouTube, the DLP YouTube page. I hope everybody is doing well this evening. And my co-host, Manpreet, lock of the night. Buddy, how you doing today? What's going on?
I'm good, dude. I'm good. I was talking to my wife before hopping on here, and I'm like, now it's starting to feel like these weeks are going by quickly when we're doing this podcast. I know we were originally talking about doing it on a week-to-week basis, but doing it bi-weekly is still feeling like it's going by super quick, man. I can't believe that we're already on episode 5. Can you believe we're on episode 5 already? We're only 2 months into this thing, and I've been having a blast every single freaking episode. And I'm glad that we're finally on the new home here. So just so the viewers and listeners know, make sure you guys subscribe to this channel. We want to boost this channel up as much as possible. We will be setting up an RSS feed as well, so that you guys will have a separate feed to subscribe to get the audio versions of this podcast as well. That'll be set up in the next couple days, so keep your eyes out for that. But yeah, first episode on the DLP channel. I'll be uploading episodes 1 through 4 on this channel as well, so we can kind of all keep it in one home space. But yeah, man, Clint, what have you been up to the last 2 weeks? Just grinding? What's going on?
Well, mostly just grinding, Locke, mostly just grinding. But one very exciting thing that has happened to me recently that I wanted to share with you and the viewers and the listeners out there. Everybody knows that I have this very odd and strange connection to Canada. All of the friends that I have made in the space, yourself, Cody, I used to, the whole thing with Z, I love my Jillian Robertson, like it's all Canada all day, all the time for some reason with me. And a couple of weeks ago, there was a guy who, when everyone was looking through his amateur record, he beat some guy named like Gregory McLean or something. And I got a lot of questions about whether or not it was a relative or something. And, looked him up. I was, he lives in Canada. Like there's no way I'm related to him. Locke. My Scottish ancestors did not relocate to the United States. They relocated to Canada, and then they went south. Your boy has Canadian roots, so I may come from Scotland originally, but I come from Scotland by way of Canada, and now it just all makes way too much sense why I have so many friends north of the border.
Dude, that is mind-blowing to me as well. So yeah, of course you get along with myself and Cody and obviously formerly Z as well, but still, man, that is great news. Of course, you probably have some plot of land up here under your name that you don't even know about.
That's what I'm saying. I've always said that I should be considered an honorary Canadian because of the relationships I've built and stuff. I might actually be an honorary Canadian.
Little did he know.
Some member of my family has dual citizenship that I don't know about or some shit. It's pretty funny, man.
That's sick. That's freaking awesome, dude. Hilarious that it started off with that one little amateur fight and you just went down this rabbit hole, and little do you know, you got a little bit of that northern border in your veins as well. I love to hear it.
What about you, man? What's going on with you? Anything new, exciting, and fun?
Honestly, nothing much. The one thing that I really want to talk about, but I know you haven't seen this, is the Kanye West documentary that's been on Netflix. They've been dropping episodes every week. I believe today was the third episode that they dropped. But I'm a big Kanye West fan from back in the day, right? Like when he dropped his first couple albums. Again, you can take a seat now while I talk about Kanye West for a couple of seconds here.
I'll just get back.
I loved his uprise and the fact that they were actually recording footage of him way back in the day while he's making his ascent up the rap rankings. It's really cool to see, especially when they're just doing it on camcorders back then, right? We're talking about like late 90s, early 2000s that they have footage of him kind of recording his first album and all that stuff. So if there's anybody that's a fan of Kanye West or used to be a fan of Kanye West, I completely understand with all the crazy shit that he's doing right now. Make sure you guys go check out that documentary. The last part of it just dropped today. I'm probably going to watch it in the next day or two, but man, it gives me the feels. When you watch something, Clint, and it makes like the goosebumps come out and the hair on the back of your neck kind of stand up, like that's how I felt. I felt very much connected to that documentary because it was a big part of my kind of grow up, my middle school days and my high school days. So it's really cool seeing that type of stuff. So if you guys haven't seen it, make sure you guys go check that out. Other than that, the life of a content creator, Clint. Grind, put out content, research, fight, grind, deal with some trolls, grind. That's really about it, right?
The never-ending cycle, man. I love that you tossed the deal with trolls in there, because that's a daily occurrence for most of us putting our opinions out there.
Exactly. When we put ourselves out there like this, it comes with the territory, but it's all about how we deal with it. And I feel like me and you have dealt with it pretty well.
Do our best, man, for sure. Thank you very much to everybody in the live chat right now hanging out with us. See a couple of familiar names in there. You guys are the good ones. Do us a favor, guys. New channel. Please smash the hell out of that like button for this one. Like, I know we always ask that, but now that we're on the new home, we're growing the new YouTube channel. We really need it now more than ever. So thank
And
you all
share
so
it.
much for
Share it as
hanging
much
out
as
with us.
possible so people
That's
know that
right.
it's on the new channel. That helps us a lot, especially in this infancy stage of the podcast.
For sure. We'll build this bad boy up to where we should be. Man, I think we got a lot to get to today. We got a lot to talk about. We talked about last week how we were scraping and clawing for stuff to talk about. There is more than enough, too much to discuss to fit into one single show today. So we can't waste any more time slapping each other on the ass. Dude, we got to talk about Covington and Masvidal. How excited are you for this pay-per-view coming up? The ultimate grudge match, the fight between former friends. Like, seriously, I get the heebie-jeebies. You were talking about the hairs on your neck standing up for Kanye. It's fights like this that get that feeling going for me. How excited are you for this one, man?
I wish I could say the same, but I'm really not, man. I don't know if it's because I haven't like watched the embeddeds or whatever it is yet. I haven't watched like the countdown show, but it's more so like let's just get to the fight at this point in time, right? The beef has been brewing for a year or so now, maybe a year and a half at this point in time. But I just wanted to see them go in there and scrap. I don't know why this feels like more so of a throwaway fight to me. Like it has all the ingredients you need. That doesn't have a title involved for casual fans to be sucked into it, right? Former friends, bitter rivals now, like that type of bullshit. Like it's even great because they used to have a YouTube vlog together way back in the day, where you see them both baby faced, right? Where they're just they're living in this apartment unit and they just have a mattress on the floor. They're going late to training together. They have their coaches from ATT coming to their apartment to wake them up to get them to go train. Just random girls coming over. They're making dinner for them, having appetizers and wine and beer and all that stuff. It's hilarious seeing them from back then. And even some of the stuff that's emerged since then, right? Like we know that Masvidal was obviously in the corner of Colby Covington when he won that interim title against Rafael dos Anjos a couple years ago. And they've been really ride or die, it seemed. But now, like the beef continues to brew. A lot of it stemming from Colby Covington not paying one of his ATT trainers, which is a good friend of Jorge Masvidal. Again, I'm not sure if it's just a minor thing that they're just trying to exemplify at this point in time, or they're trying to extrapolate so that it looks much worse than it actually is. But it's sucking some people in. It's got the hair on the back of your neck standing up, right? You seem to be very much invested in this fight. I don't mind it. Again, I'm looking forward to it. The press conference and all that should be fun this week. But what I am most excited about is the fallout of this fight. Is what happens if Jorge wins? What happens if Covington wins? And for me, it seems no matter who ends up winning, they should get the winner of the fight that was just announced today. And people are talking about it in the live chat right now. Gilbert Burns versus Hamzat Chimaev, because I think that 100% solidifies the next number one contender. Absolutely. Like that would, if you put these guys together, maybe end of summer, early fall, you could line up something for Kamaru Usman early 2023 with a legitimate number one contender. If it's Covington, sure, it's going to be his third fight with Kamaru Usman, but he's beaten Jorge Masvidal. He would have beaten either Gilbert Burns or Hamzat Chimaev. Who else is there for him to go out there and fight? Whereas Chimaev, right? You beat Gilbert Burns, you beat Jorge Masvidal or Colby Covington, you assert yourself as the number one, number two guy in the division, and of course you deserve the title shot as well. With Masvidal, like, he needs to win this fight because all it seems he wants to do is have money fights. This is a money fight for him because there's a grudge match, right? The Kamaru Usman fights are obviously money fights because it's a title fight. But where does he go if he loses this weekend, which I think he's going to do? How do you line him up moving forward, Clint?
Man, you know what? The most exciting thing for me, though, is that rumor mill churning here. I think Dana White is tempted to put the BMF belt on the line for Saturday.
Do it.
I'm not sure. I think that needs to happen if we're being honest here, because like you mentioned, I'm in agreement with you that I think Masvidal loses this fight. Well, that BMF title goes down in flames with him if he goes on a end of career skid losing streak that we see so many of these fighters do. You got to pass that title off. And let's be clear, Colby Covington is far and away the number two guy in the division right now. I know Hamzat is coming up. I know we've got Sean Strickland in the wings. But right this second, if Usman didn't exist, Colby Covington is your 170-pound champion. And I won't hear any word to the contrary. Give that man the BMF belt, and that's a reason for your third fight. That's a reason for the rematch with Kamaru Usman, where you unify the real belt and the BMF belt. And then, honestly, you can do away with the BMF belt hijinks at that point in time, because the champion is now the BMF if he happens to, well, whoever wins it ends up with both belts. So that's kind of the UFC's out for the BMF belt, because it was made for these larger than life personalities that are not really going to get their hands on a belt. And to your question, Locke, I don't think Masvidal does much after this point. I mean, he's obviously spry enough to get some more fights under him. He's obviously still going to be around if he wants to be. Now, he's a scrapper. He's a fighter. He'll probably take that retirement circuit after this, I would think. Couple of fun fights here or there, maybe fighting once a year. He'll be ushered on his way out, because when this fight is over, he's never going to sniff a title shot at 170. Is he cutting weight to get back down to 155 and ruin his body at 40 years old to chase the title? No, I don't think so. Do they throw him in there with Conor McGregor? I mean, maybe. You know, that's the type of thing that you could do with Masvidal, because who knows if we're ever going to get the Diaz and McGregor trilogy. But what we could do is have a McGregor-Masvidal at 170 once both guys are busted and just need a fight. Like, there's a lot of fun things you can do with Masvidal going forward from here if he loses this fight. But his relevancy ends on Saturday, in my opinion.
I absolutely agree with you there. And I know you might have slipped up with saying Strickland deserves a title shot, even though he's in 185er. I think
Sorry
you were talking
about
about Leon Edwards probably. But
yes,
yeah,
yes,
Leon
Edwards.
Obviously the other guy that's kind of sticking around in that division as well.
Too many names are swimming around.
I completely understand it. But that's pretty much the welterweight division, though, right? You got Chimaev, you got Burns, you got Masvidal. Again, more than likely, it's either a Conor fight, a title fight if he can finagle his way into there somehow. But other than that, I don't see him taking on Vicente Luque, right? I don't see him taking
watch
on.
It though.
I know exactly. I'd watch it, but it's like, does he really have that hunger anymore to go out there and try to prove himself to try to deserve another title shot? I don't think so, especially with having his night ended against Usman the way that he did last time around. It was pretty definitive. So at least with the Covington side, Covington, you know, he had an argument to win at least 3 rounds in the second fight with Kamaru Usman. So there is a little bit of a story there that we can kind of build up. And if he's able to take out Masvidal, if he's able to take out the winner of Burns Chimaev, you can't neglect the guy any further, man. He is easily the number 2 guy in the division. I wouldn't mind seeing a third fight with Kamaru Usman, because if we let those guys fight 10 times, I think Covington comes out on top maybe 3 or 4 times, and maybe this third matchup would be one of those 3 or 4 times. So
I just want to say it because it's a banger every time they step
exactly,
in there.
exactly. So I'm totally on board with that as well. Another big story that kind of came out over the last couple of days. Now this one is kind of surreal, because for anybody that follows my channel, obviously I put up my Coach's Main Event Marathon show today, and in one of the interviews I was doing with Cody Donovan, a fighter that came up, and we did this interview on Thursday last week. A fighter that came up was Cain Velasquez. And we're just talking about, he has a great style, good wrestling, good boxing, good cardio. Little did I know Cain Velasquez was already up to something. And by Monday, this guy was going to be arrested. And I just found it coincidental that both of these names came up at the same time. But yeah, Cain Velasquez gets arrested on Monday. Little details on Monday. Finally on Tuesday, stuff starts coming out. Shout out to Fight Oracle. I believe he used to be Front Row Brian, for anybody that used to be on the Twitter game way back in the day. But that guy knows his shit, and he knows how to stay incognito as well. But apparently he leaked out that it was a guy that molested a relative of Velasquez, somebody that works at a daycare, or somebody that was at a daycare. And this guy, this 43-year-old guy, his name is escaping me right now, was molesting a lot of these kids, like over hundreds of times. Apparently, he got arrested last week, and they let him out a couple of days later. Not entirely sure why. I think he paid his bail, whatever it is. Cain Velasquez gets wind of this, gets very pissed off, chases this guy down. Apparently, they went on an 11-mile chase before he eventually was able to kind of ram the other guy's car. Then he shot into the car multiple times, unfortunately hitting the stepfather of the guy that he was targeting. And then while during that chase, the mother of the the molester called the police, and that's why they were on the scene as quickly as possible that time. So very weird to see Cain Velasquez wrapped up in something like this. And the one thing that I hated right off the bat, news stories, people on Twitter right away, CTE. That's like the first thing that they're pointing to. And sure, you know, we can throw that out there when it's a guy like Diego Sanchez, when it's a guy like Mayhem Miller or something like that. But Cain Velasquez is a guy that, you know, looks like a mean ogre, right? But is the most kind-hearted guy out there, especially when you hear him speak. So to see him wrapped up in some sort of news story like this was very weird. And it was very unjust for people to just immediately start pointing to CTE. That kind of did irk me a little bit. I've been a big Cain Velasquez fan since way back in the day. I was in the arena when he knocked out Brock Lesnar and claimed that heavyweight title way back at UFC 121. But now the details are starting to emerge, right? Now you see that was like emotionally invested for him to go out there and put a hurting on a guy that was doing some bad things, some very, very bad things. Apparently that guy was on his way to a courthouse to get a monitor put on his ankle just so that he could stay monitored even after it being released from jail. And Cain was like, nope, let me get my hands on this guy before. And I wish he did get his hands on him first rather than using a gun, right? Heavyweight champion. He doesn't have to worry about getting knocked out by a guy like this. I wish he kind of just went about it in a better fashion. Adding a gun into the equation, I get it. You want to kill this guy. That's the type of motivation you have when you hear about things like this. But when you are as skilled as a person as Cain Velasquez is and can dish out damage the way that he can, I would rather just wait for my opportunity and take a battery charge rather than attempted murder or, you know, assault with a deadly weapon or something like that. I don't know how it's going to pan out. I'm not big into the justice system or anything like that. I'm not sure what it means. I'm seeing some things about him possibly being locked up between 15 to life if he's fully convicted on all the charges that are brought against him right now. Obviously, some people are saying he's brought hurt upon his family now because he might not be able to be there for his own kids now. Yeah, very, very messy situation. I understand where he's coming from. I just wish he went about it with his hands rather than a gun, honestly. Well, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't know if there's much more to add to that, Locke. Honestly, you hit almost every point, and it's a heartbreaking story because we see time and time again the people that should be convicted, the people that should be punished, should be locked up, whatever you want to say, they slide through people's fingers somehow. We don't, you know, the justice system is a little broken here in the United States, very sadly, and people like this are allowed to go free. I don't think the man ever should have been free. And as a father, I can tell you, I understand what Cain's thought process was. And I can understand because I would have had the exact same sentiment. I would have absolutely had the exact same desire. I don't want to see what happens to Cain and his family because of it, though. Because, yeah, that man may deserve everything that Cain tried to dish out to him. But when you start going down the road of vigilante justice, like you mentioned, now Cain's kids might be without their dad for the next 20 years. And is that, in the long run, worth it? Cain thought so. And that's his choice. Unfortunately, now he's in the hands of the law. I don't say what he did was right, Locke, because I don't know that vigilante justice or murder is ever right in any circumstance, but I can absolutely understand why he went for what he did.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there. My question is, are they going to go out there and investigate that daycare now, right? That's the thing that they should do.
You'd hope
Apparently,
so.
there's a ton of complaints against this, and knowing that this guy still worked there even after all this shit is what's most infuriating, right? Maybe that's what Cain was like, oh, the justice system is doing nothing. Let me take it into my own hands and show this guy how he should actually be punished based on what he's been doing. But yeah, man, I hope he, you know, I hope he gets out relatively unscathed in terms of any jail time or any penalties that he's going to have to face. I'm sure that there will be some sort of rationale and understanding from the law side of things, but yeah, we'll obviously be keeping our eyes on this over the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a long, drawn out process.
It's going to be a
if
big
there's
thing.
Anything that we know, it's going to be a long time. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, his arraignment is going to be pushed back now to March 7th. So I believe that's Monday of next week. So yeah, he's just sitting in jail until then. He can't post bail, nothing like that. He's just going to be staring at a wall and kind of considering the decisions and and everything that led up to him sitting in that jail cell now.
Yeah, man, it's a tough thing. It's a really tough thing. Those are the types of decisions that personally I can't fathom, because you legitimately have to choose between life and death in those situations. What's worth it to you, what's not. In that moment of hate, in that moment of anger, Cain wants revenge for his family member, someone who went through something they never should have gone through. And I get that. I absolutely get that. But 6 months, a year into sitting there, understanding that your family and your kids are fighting for themselves out there without you to lead the family anymore, is that the right payoff? Is it worth it anymore? That's where you start to question. I don't know. So everyone just in these types of situations, honestly, and again, I understand why he did what he did, but you got to take a step back. You got to take a deep breath. Maybe there's an alternative option. Maybe you can get the case opened back up. Maybe you can get the law involved again in some form or fashion down the road. Don't take it into your own hands. But again, personally, I can't say anything but support for Cain, because I totally get why he did what he did. People that abuse and molest children are the worst possible people on the planet and deserve what's coming to them, if I'm being completely honest. So, man, it's a sad story. We had to kind of talk about it. I want to get to maybe a little bit more of a lighthearted topic moving forward, because that was a bit of a bummer, and we try to keep it upbeat here on the show, but that's the kind of stuff you can't ignore. Want to transition over to Renato Moicano stepping in to save the co-main event of this big UFC event we've got coming up on Saturday, facing Rafael dos Anjos. And Locke, I think the most important question surrounding this fight that I want to present to you is Islam Makhachev scared of Rafael dos Anjos?
That is hilarious, man. That is absolutely hilarious. Some of that a cat and mouse going on between those guys, right? Like one of them accusing them of dodging the other, and they're kind of pointing the finger at each other. But the big thing here is that Renato Moicano is the one that stepped up and is actually stepping in. What an absolute G for doing something like this, right? You want to talk about Bobby Green stepping in on short notice against Islam Makhachev. You're talking about a guy in Renato Moicano who's accepting the fight on Tuesday of fight week and is in Brazil when he's accepting it. From my understanding, he arrived at noon local time in Las Vegas after a 19-and-a-half-hour flight, or trip, I should say, with 2 layovers in between, while having to cut weight and try to make 160 pounds come Friday morning. That is some G shit, Clint. That is absolute G shit. Unfortunately for him, though, I think this is a tough task for him to go up against a guy in Rafael dos Anjos who's had, multiple training camps now kind of fall through, and now he just wants to go out there and compete. He's the one that's been preparing for 5 rounds, whereas Moicano is just money Moicano at this point in time, right? I feel as though he's just going to go in there and try to take his head off almost immediately, and if he's not able to, he will more than likely start to slow down, and we'll see dos Anjos start to take over after that. But yeah, this definitely has to go down as one of the most G moves in the UFC's history, to take a big spot like this and possibly halt your own momentum, right? He's built up some solid momentum for himself on a couple, I believe a 2 or 3 fight winning streak at this point in time. But I think it's a win-win for him, right? You win, right? You beat dos Anjos to get a legitimate name on your record. You lose, he did a favor for the UFC. Let's still plug him into his next fight as if he didn't take the fight, and let's just say it was a miraculous kind of thing that he did that fight week. What are your thoughts here on Moicano stepping in on short notice?
I think it's great. I absolutely love it. He's riding hot. He's feeling confident about himself right now, coming off a big win over Alexander Hernandez. Now he gets a co-main event slot. Like, he gets to be right under the spotlight, and he's facing a legend. Rafael dos Anjos is a name that you absolutely want on your resume going forward. So I think this is a very solid move by Moicano to really buff up his own name, his name tag, his name value, moving forward. If he gets a win here, this is big time. And like you said, if he gets the loss, it's extremely forgivable. You're flying cross country, you're cutting weight on 3 days notice or whatever. You're trying to get down to a cut weight. You're fighting a former champion. You lost that one. It's okay. You did us a favor. Thanks anyway, man. There's nothing but upside here for Moicano. I think this is a baller move. But what's curious to me is it sounds like the co-main event is now 5 rounds.
Yeah. Well, it's always
why is the co-main event 5 rounds?
Well, the Fiziev fight was already a 5-rounder, so they just kept it as a 5-rounder, which I don't mind. I'm cool
shocked.
with that.
I'm shocked that Moicano took the 5 rounds. You would think it would get downgraded to 3.
You'd think, but I think he just wants to be that G to be like, look, I'm still taking on five rounds. Again, further to the point of a win-win situation for him here, that even if he loses this in the 4th or 5th round, which again is something that I'm predicting to happen, he could be like, I wasn't ready. I just took the fight on this type of notice just to fill in and do a favor for the guys.
And Locke, all the money's coming in on Moicano. I know we're just having our fun. This isn't our gambling breakdown show, but he opened up a plus 155 dog, and he's down to about plus 130. And even at Sportsbet, he's down to plus 118. Like, it's been nothing but Moicano money.
Damn, that I didn't expect that much steam to come in on Moicano myself. I've set kind of a number myself for Dos Anjos. If he reaches minus 150, that's an auto bet for me, considering, at 60% implied, more than likely that's a damn good bet, considering he's the one that's been preparing for this date. He's the one preparing for 5 rounds, and he's the one with solid durability. Is if Moicano can't get him out of there early, things get very fishy for him later on in this fight. So I can't hate anybody taking the shot on Moicano, but you're making it a lot better of an entry for me for Rafael Dos Anjos, and I might be having to take a shot there. Go ahead.
There's one thing, though, that you're forgetting in this breakdown, Locke. There's one key piece of this puzzle that you're
I know
missing.
where you're going. Lay it on me.
What about the curse of the dragon, Locke? What about the curse of the dragon?
Honestly, I don't know what happened. Maybe I'm living under a rock or something, but I didn't know anything about this curse until this week. Like, somebody messaged me on or commented on one of my videos, and they're like, "You're forgetting about the curse of the dragon." I'm like, "Curse of the dragon? What the fuck is going on? Is Bruce Lee back alive or something like that? What are you guys talking about?" And then I started to put it together after that, but. It is what it is. I think we'll see Dos Anjos still go out there and get the dub. What are your thoughts on the line movement, though? Do you think it's justified or what?
I think it's suspect, if I'm being honest. I think it's a recency bias thing. A lot of people are super down on RDA. He's late in his career. He's a little older. Everyone expected him to lose to Fiziev, and now he's getting a young buck that's coming off a big KO win. What have you done for me lately? RDA hasn't done a whole lot. So I really think it's a lot of recency bias, and I'm kind of right there with you, man. Minus 150, minus 155, minus 160. I'm looking at the RDA side myself, and I do like those late round finish props, because Moicano has a chin issue and he has a gas tank issue. He can't out wrestle Rafael Dos Anjos. Maybe he can armbar him from guard. Screw you, Wellington Turman.
Wow.
But I have a hard time seeing him submitting somebody like Rafael Dos Anjos unless he has him hurt first. So the club and sub is potentially a path to victory, but we don't see chin issues from Rafael Dos Anjos. I don't see a clean knockout coming. If he doesn't get the finish, I have a hard time seeing him win. So I'm right there with you. I do like the RDA side. And might I just go ahead and make note, Locke, while you've been missing the boat on the Curse of the Dragon, it's something that I have been pounding the drum on for a few years. And one of the highlights of my Twitter career was when Paul Felder himself liked the tweet when I said that it should be mandatory for his victims to get a dragon tattoo after they lose their fight after beating him.
That's like some Mortal Kombat shit right there.
That's what I'm talking about. Put it in the contract. If you defeat me and lose your next fight, you must get a dragon tattoo.
There you go. The Curse of the Dragon. I love it. I love it. By the way, when you brought up the Wellington tournament thing, I can just imagine you waking up from like nightmares of being caught in an armbar yourself.
No.
Tap. No.
Honey, what's wrong? Turman's got my arm.
Exactly. All right, let's spin this forward. We got a couple more things to talk about, and obviously some great segments to get to as well. Next up, we got Sam Alvey getting another crack in the UFC. Obviously, the smiling Sam, and Clint can't get that smile off his face. Again, best teeth in MMA Twitter, by the way. My guy Clint over there. Anyway, in regards to Sam Alvey getting a crack, so he's 0-7-1 in his last 8 fights. The last time he got his hand raised was way back in June of 2018, where he won a split decision over Gian Vellante. That was right after he was able to knock out Marcin Prachnio, and probably one of the most comedic sequences of a knockout, with Sam Alvey landing the same strike over and over again until Marcin Prachnio was ultimately too knocked out to continue. But since that Gian Vellante fight, he got knocked out by Lil Nog, got knocked out by Jimmy Crute, lost a decision to Klidson Abreu, lost a split decision to Ryan Spann, which was it was a good fight. It was a close fight. He had his case to actually win that fight as well. Then he went to a draw with Dao Unyung, another one where he possibly could have gotten the decision in his favor as well. After that, Julian Marquez chokes him out, loses a split decision to Wellington Turman, and then obviously gets choked out by Brendan Allen on short notice, albeit because that was the week that he was supposed to fight Phil Hawes. Now, the UFC apparently called him up and said, hey, Sam, you've done a ton of favors for us. You put on great fights, fight of the night performances. You've never really said no to anything. We're going to give you one more shot. We're going to give you that final fight on your contract. Now, he kind of leaves it open-ended after that, right? Because we've seen some fighters, most notably Alexis Davis, get released even after a win. And I could see that happening here for Sam Alvey as well, where they're just doing him a favor so that he can fight out his contract. And then at the end of it, even with a win here, whoever he ends up going up against, he still might get released, right? That's what I feel like is still going to happen. He's getting up there in age. He's currently sitting at 35 years old. Again, I was actually expecting to say 40 years old, considering how long this guy's been around. You're talking about a guy with over, 49, 59, almost 60 fights in his MMA career, which is absolutely insane, and still only 35 years old. Again, I never really want to cheer for somebody to lose their job. That's not what I'm in the business of doing, right? We always kind of like to joke about it, but at the end of the day, it's their well-being. It's, putting food on their table for their kids. Not to mention I believe what does he have? Like 4, 5, 6 kids or something. I know he has a bunch of kids with his wife, and just having a roof over their head too. So I'm not cheering for Sam Alvey to get cut. I don't mind him getting this last crack to fight out his contract, but I'm interested to see what the UFC chooses to do with him, win or lose after that. Lose, you got to believe that they're going to let him go for sure, right? But if he wins, does he save his UFC career? That's my question. What do you think?
I'll be honest with you, Locke. I think if he wins, as long as it's not via split decision, like if he can get the knockout, we're going to see more of Sam Alvey. Like he posted his video up on his YouTube channel. And if you guys haven't checked it out, I would say pull up Sam Alvey's YouTube channel, go take a listen to it yourself. What they said to him was that they understand the situation he's been in. And guys, a lot of you give me a lot of flack for having bet on Sam Alvey several times over the course of the last couple of years. But you look back at some of those fights, he won a few of those fights. Like his record should be better than what it is. He got absolutely robbed by the judges, not once, not twice, like 3 different times. And he almost knocked out some very solid competition. When he got beat, it was a last-second fight. It was a late notice opponent switch. The man hasn't had a full camp in like 3 years. Now, I think some of this comes down to management. It's great that Sam Alvey is willing to say, whatever, I'm your boy, I'll step in there, I'll take the fight. That's awesome. But there's a lot of people with a lot more successful careers because they don't do that every single time. I am so happy as a fan that the UFC has given my man Sam Alvey his last fight on his run right here. I am so happy that he gets to fight out his contract because he has been the company man, because we've seen it time and time again where you be the company man and they still throw you to the wolves at the end of it and just throw you away. The fact that they're, like you said, for his family's sake, for his sake, for keeping food on the table for all those kids, I am happy that they are treating Sam Alvey right and giving him that one last shot. Have a full camp. Let's get you a decent fight. And then see if you can actually save your job with a real matchup. I hope he manages his career more intelligently from this point forward. I hope he gets the win and reminds everybody what he's really capable of on this last fight. The fact of the matter is, even though I'm the biggest Sam Alvey homer on the planet, though, Locke, there's that argument to be made that he should have been cut a long time ago. If he loses this last fight on his contract, he's got to head down the ladder. We got to say goodbye at that point because there's just no excuse after that. I'm praying with everything I've got that he pulls it off, he gets the win, saves his job, and we see a new level of Sam Alvey moving forward where he can have some fun and entertaining fights for us. We'll just have to see who they line him up against. I can't wait to see the opponent selection.
Yeah, me too. Hopefully it's a fun fight, something that he can deliver, like a fight of the night type of performance for. Last thing I want to say about this topic, I'm not a big fan of the argument that he's taking up a roster space that somebody else is occupying. There are no limited amount of roster spaces
No.
in the UFC roster. Don't ever use that as a reason as to why Sam Alvey needs to be cut. They sign, they cut, they release. It's a vicious cycle day in, day out. But there's not this crazy cap that is like compared to like an NBA team or an NHL team where they have a cap of players that they can have on a specific team. That's not the case with the UFC. So no,
Exactly.
he's not, in the UFC and taking up Kai Kamaka's spot, who unfortunately got let go for whatever reason it was. Right, the guy built a solid relationship with the UFC. He's delivered on his promises. He may not have delivered in terms of wins, but he's kind of been a company man. And the fact that they're rewarding him like this, I'm completely okay with that. But no, he is not taking up a roster spot. Let's drop that shit.
Agreed, man. Agreed. Go Sam Alvey. Hopefully he gets one for the good guys. Man, last topic we kind of got a trend on over here is big time step up in competition. Some young blood challenging for a strap. They finally booked it. Shevchanko versus Taila Santos getting her opportunity at the strap. Now, Valentina Shevchanko has been the most dominant champion really that we have had in a long time. And I'm talking about the men's division as well. She has been absolutely untouchable since she got her hands on that belt. And Taila Santos is one of the most exciting young up-and-comers we've seen in a really long time. Does she have a shot, Locke? Is this a real title fight for the first time in like 3 years for Valentina Shevchanko?
I love how you said within 3 years. It could be, man. Like she is a legitimate opponent. Like I put it out there that it's a very intriguing fight, and I got some flack for it. Where one of my guys, shout out to my guy Chris White, he's even like, "Who is Taila Santos or Taila Santos?" And I'm like, if you're watching close enough, you know who she is. She has legitimate wins on her record. But the main thing is, who else is there for Valentina to fight? Right? She's beaten number 1s through 4. She beat number 9 as well. And Carmouche is the other one that she was able to defend the belt against. This is going to be her 7th title defense. 7th. Like she's running through the division without any issues. There's people that are sprinkled out throughout it, right? Number 5 is Taila Santos, so obviously she should get the next crack if she's the highest ranked. And she, Valentina Shevchanko has already beaten 1 through 4. Number 6 is Viviane Araújo, who I believe already has a fight lined up, and she's taken a couple L's in her last couple fights. Joanne Wood, who just lost to Taila Santos in dominant fashion as well. So let's kind of like give Taila Santos a little bit more love there. And then number 8 is Andrea Lee, who's starting to turn things around, starting to get a couple wins on her belt, and maybe she could be in line as well if she's able to get maybe another win or two. But yeah, I'm fine with this. I'm actually interested to see what the odds are going to be here. Like if we get minus 800, minus 1,000 Shevchanko again, that's an auto bet on the Taila Santos side. She does have some promise. She does have some skill that she can present here, right? She has a strong top game, which is something that we saw Jennifer Maia obviously have success with in round 2 of her fight with Valentina Shevchanko. She's 28 years old. She's, she has that age kind of advantage here as well, with Shevchanko being at 33. Maybe Shevchanko is closer to her prime than Santos is. And we could also throw in the argument that this might be too soon for Santos. But when you beat a girl like Joanne Wood or Calderwood, who was on the precipice of a title shot of herself, and you beat her the way that you beat her, how else do you kind of match her up? Like, we need to keep Shevchanko active. What was the... Let me just pull up when her last fight was. Lauren Murphy, UFC 266 in September. Now we're talking about what a 9-month layoff for her. She wants to stay active. Like again, she's getting up there in age too, 33 years old. She has maybe another solid 4 years to do this at her prime peak. So let's start giving her some opponents that will possibly be able to make some ruckus. I think Santos, not saying that she's a lock by any means, but I think that she could pose some problems here that other opponents were not able to against Valentina Shevchanko. Right? She's strong. She can get in the clinch. She can do work from on top. She has good striking. She won't get caught into the traps like Jessica Ai was getting caught, or Liz Carmouche or something like that. I think that this is a legitimate opponent. Just last thing I'll say about this, and I'll swing it on over to you. This might be the toughest fight for Valentina Shevchanko, with the exception of Joanna Jędrzejczyk, or sorry, I'm talking about since she captured the gold. Joanna Jędrzejczyk or Jessica Andrade, who is obviously a very hard-nosed striker that a lot of people thought could give Valentina trouble. Valentina sliced through her like butter. Taila Santos is a legitimate contender, and I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of problems she poses to the GOAT. How do you feel about this matchup?
I'm right there with you, Locke. I really am. I mean, it really gives me Juliana Pena vibes, where everybody completely counted out this hard-nosed grappler who was tough and gritty and had a good gas tank. She steps in. I think we're going to get a ridiculous number on her. Now, the only difference between those two fights is we know even through all of Nunez's career, she's really struggled with the gas tank and the grappling. So that was a big hole in her game. Shevchanko doesn't have that quite so much. She can go 25 minutes. We know her grappling is off the charts. She can wrestle. She's got arm bars. Like, she is not nearly as much of a fish out of water on the ground as someone like Nunes kind of has proven to be over the years when she can't get that early finish. So it's still a much, much steeper test, in my opinion. It's some uphill sledding in a big way. It might be too early for Talia Santos, but like you mentioned, there is no other option. We got to keep the champion busy, and these young up-and-comers are the only ones that she hasn't absolutely destroyed yet. So the time is now. I think it's going to be fun, and I may also be there with you with the degenerate bet on Talia Santos if that number is sweet enough, because she does have a very clear path to victory with that grappling. So it'll be fun, man. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. That goes down June 11th, UFC 275. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the one that's also going to be headlined by Glover Teixeira and Yuri Prohaska in Singapore. Apparently, that's where it's going to go down. So there you guys have it. All right, let's keep this show moving along and let's get into the people. One of the people's favorite segments, Fighter Stonks. All right. So Fighter Stonks this week. I'm kicking things off because Clint keeps stealing my goddamn bets or stocks that I want to buy. But me and Clint are obviously going to be alternating on an episodely basis now. But this time it is my turn. So let me just quickly share my screen here and show off the beautiful portfolio that I've put together so far since we've started this thing. Let me just make sure it's showing. And there we go. So, interesting, something I kind of overlooked when we were looking at it first. You can actually display the data by a couple different ways. I've normally been looking at share price, but if you actually switch it to change and the percentage, you can see how much of a increase you've gotten on your stonks since you've actually purchased them. So obviously Ankalaev has gone up 5% since I purchased him. The biggest red flag here though is Manon Fiorot has gone down close to 13%. I'm not entirely sure why. I think that was maybe due to Jessica Ai pulling out of her last fight or the fight that they were scheduled for. But we do have a replacement for Manon Fiorot, which is one Jennifer Maia. So a win over Jennifer Maia should more than likely change that price around and give us a solid bump in the stock of Manon Fiorot. So I'll still be holding on to that one. Only got 5 fighters so far. Obviously, Magomed Ankalaev fights next weekend. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing that price go up as well, which is what I'm expecting with him to go out there and knock out Thiago Santos, and then Khamzat Chimaev. I'm glad that he finally got his fight booked against Gilbert Burns. I believe that's going down in April. So hopefully we should see that 1.87 skyrocket as well if he's able to get the win there that night. But in terms of fighters that I'm looking to purchase today, there's 2 guys that are fighting in the next 2 weeks that I really want to hop on. So first and foremost, I got to go with my guy Song Yadong. I'm in here.
It's a good pick.
He's at $1.84 right now. It seemed like his price rose back in February. He was down at about $1.68. Now he's up to $1.84. So I'm just going to buy one stock of his right now. Bang. There we go. Add him to the portfolio. That's done. And then secondly, I'm going to go with the guy that fights next week as well and will more than likely secure a title shot for himself very soon. Alex Pereira. $1.54. He's going up against Bruno Silva next week, which should be a barn burner of a fight. But you got to believe he's off to the races if he's able to go out there and get a solid victory over one Bruno Silva. So, yeah, there you guys go. I got 2 of my purchases today on Fighter Stonks, Song Yadong, Alex Pereira. We'll see how they'll do next weekend. Clint, I'm going to flip it on over to you, brother. What do you like for your purchases? You got anything up your sleeve?
I'm going to go ahead and just show off my portfolio here for everybody. I've got a bit of a larger portfolio than Locke here at this point. Hanging on to Askar Askarov. Merab, he's another one of these guys that for some reason has dropped down a little bit. Maybe the inactivity, maybe that first round against Marlon Moraes, not sure. Got El Jefe and Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill had a nice little profit. So even though it's showing red, that's just the recent trend of him coming down. I think people have jumped ship after the spike after his most recent fight. I'm not jumping ship. I'm not selling him. I am tempted to cut my losses on Mike Trezano, but I think I'm going to wait and see what his next matchup is, because I also don't know that he's a guy that's necessarily going to just be a bust overall. I think I can get my money back on that one. JSP, Casey O'Neill, a couple of wins. I got Patty Pimblett and David Onama, enjoying all of these, even though there's a lot of red showing here. Like I said, it's people buying low, selling high, kind of right after the fight type of situation. So I'm not concerned with those numbers being a little down at the moment. What I am going to do, Mr. Locke, is take a bite of Jalen Turner. My man has a fight coming up just this weekend, and I do think that he will win. I've got a regular size bet on him. He is cheap at less than $1, 89 cents. I'm going to go ahead and snag me some tarantula right there. And then the next spot that I'm looking at is Miss Marina Moroz, another fighter who is fighting this weekend. And the reason that I'm purchasing her stock, she's got a big fight with Agapova ahead of her. I do have a bet on her as an underdog, and Agapova is such a big, larger-than-life story right now. People are so nutso about this girl that I think Marina will go from relatively unknown to being extremely popular with a win over a fighter like that. This will kind of spotlight her, so I expect to jump there. It might be a quick turnaround, buy and sell type of situation, not a long-term investment, but I do think it's a solid one for a quick bump this weekend. And finally, you don't have Thug Nasty on your roster, do you, Locke?
I do not.
I didn't think so. So I'm going to go ahead and buy myself some Thug Nasty and make sure I have got the grappling machine himself. The same situation as the last spot, where getting a name like Edson Barboza up on your resume is going to be something that I think gives him a gigantic boost. Not sure if I'm going to keep that as a long-term investment or a short-term investment, but I do think that number goes up after Saturday, and that's going to at least give me a little bit of a boost. So I'm not looking a week ahead like you are. I'm strictly looking to Saturday, and we'll see how this whole thing pans out, everybody. Make sure you take a look at the info right here. If you want to play Fighter Stonks with us, head on over to Prediction Strike. It acts exactly like the stock market with fighters and athletes. There is other sports on there, football, basketball, baseball. It's really fun, you guys. We're having a good time with it. So make sure you use that code LOCK and get that free fighter stock when you deposit to come over here and play with us.
Question for you, Clint. Do you have or are planning on betting Mr. Bryce Mitchell?
I have not, and I am tempted. That's one of those spots. That's one of those spots, Locke, where I feel like everybody is looking at that underdog value on Edson Barboza, and I talked about it on my podcast that I was kind of leaning that way myself. The closer we get to this fight, the more I think the chain grappling is going to be the problem. And I said it on the podcast, Locke. I have got I've got Brian Ortega vibes right now from Bryce Mitchell. He's a work in progress. He's a young fighter with a bright future, but obvious flaws in his game. Takes 2 years off, and now he's coming back against a monster like Edson Barboza. That kind of speaks to what the UFC thinks of him and what he's capable of, in my opinion. And I'd expect nothing but improvements after that 2-year layoff. A lot of people are talking about how that's a red flag and we have questions. I'm sure we're going to see improvements. I'm not saying it's a red flag. I'm not saying I've got questions. I know he is going to look better when he comes back after a 2-year layoff. So if he's improved, then he probably gets the win over Barboza. And it's going to be on the ground. It's not going to be striking. He's not going to go out there and play on the feet. I expect to see kind of a 15-minute mauling. Again, I haven't bet him yet because this is more of a gut feeling, less definitive proof for me to put my money on. So maybe. Not yet, but maybe.
Okay, I like it. Again, I'm picking Barboza as my prediction, but I don't know if I have the nuts to go out there and actually back him in this spot.
Yeah, that was I was kind of sitting that way myself, and it's one of those ones that just kind of creeps on you. You know, the longer the week goes, the more and more and more I'm kind of thinking Mitchell. We'll see by Saturday whether or not I pull that trigger, though. All right, folks, we are on to the next segment of the day. Some of y'all's favorite, the Daily Doofus. Locke, I may be stealing your thunder here. I don't know if we're going to disagree on this week's Daily Doofus. How could it be anybody but Islam Makhachev as the Daily Doofus? I mean, come on, man. You've got it in the bag. You've got the title shot lined up. You've got the opportunity to be an absolute gangster. You've got to catch weight so you don't even have to cut all the way down. Rafael Dos Anjos offered to meet you at 170, not 160. 170. Dana White comes out after talking with Robbie from Barstool Sports today, and you know what's happening, Locke? They are rebooking the Dariush fight. They're taking the title shot opportunity away from Islam Makhachev because he didn't sack up and step in there against Rafael Dos Anjos. And then he had the nerve, Locke. He had the nerve to jump on Twitter and say that he is the one who called RDA's bluff. Bro, Dana freaking White came out and threw you under the bus. You can't come out talking crap that RDA isn't the one that accepted the fight. He's still fighting on Saturday. Both RDA and the boss said you didn't take the fight. I don't care if it was a fighter pay issue. You can't be talking shit when you're the only one whose story doesn't make sense. Islam Makhachev is this week's Daily Doofus.
You took the words out of my mouth. There's no way I could have presented it any better, my man. I was going to go with Islam Makhachev as well. Fumbles the bag right there. Again, it's one of those spots where you're like, we've seen this a couple times in the past. I can't remember or recall the scenario off the top of my head, but we've seen those kind of like guys trying to one up each other, and then the other guy kind of calls his bluff and, you know, things like that, where it's funny because RDA first says, I want to fight at 160 pounds. And then Makhachev says, I want it at 170 pounds. And then you're like, okay, maybe RD is like looking for other options. Then he puts out the I'll take this at 170 pounds as well, calling the bluff of Islam Makhachev. I believe he got some sort of crucial information to know for a fact that Makhachev was not going to be able to make 170 pounds, which is why he put that tweet out. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, if anybody looks dumb, it is our Daily Doofus here, and that's got to be Islam Makhachev. But that's not going to change the fact that once everything pans out, more than likely he's going to be ruling the lightweight division by the end of the year or early next year.
He can add the Daily Doofus award to his belt pile at the end of the day.
Let's add that to his Wikipedia accomplishment.
He just got it. Yes, hit the Wikipedia page. This week's winner of the Daily Doofus award.
There you go. There you go. All right. That wraps up the Daily Doofus, and that brings us right into my favorite segment, my most competitive segment with my guy, Clint. Let's get into the Deadlock Duel. All right, so right now, Clint is actually up 11-9 right now. This mofo stealing both of my dog plays and cashing on both of them as well. He is ahead of me by 2 points right now. So just a quick recap of the last two events. I had Jamal Hill and Kyle Dawkins both come through for me for 2 points on that event. And then on the next one, I had Makhachev. And I didn't actually give Clint a guy or fighter for my second selection for that card, but I did put out two names to him that I was considering, told him I'd get back to him, got busy with a bunch of shit, never got back to him. And both of those fighters ended up losing anyway. So I'm just going to take the L on it. It was either going to be Ji Yoon Kim or it was going to be Misha Serkinov. Both of them end up losing anyway. So being the good, friendly competition guy that I am, I'll take the L on that. On the flip side with Clint, he cashes on Jamal Hill, flubs it on Alan Baudot, so misses out on the dog points there. But close. In the next event, cashes on Islam Makhachev and Armin Petrosian, who was going to be my dog selection. That earns him 3 points for that event. So once again, like I said, he's right now, 11-9. We are here now to make our picks for UFC 272 and UFC Vegas 50. And I'm actually going to let Clint go first for UFC 272. Then I'll give my picks for 272. And then I'll start Vegas 50 and you give your Vegas 50 picks. So who do you got for UFC 272 this weekend?
All right. So we got to start off with the main event as always. For those of you new to the show, the Deadlock Duel, we pick two fights on the main card. It is always the main event, and then one fighter of our choosing. You get 1 point for picking the favorite. You get 2 points for picking the underdog, assuming they win. In the main event, we've already talked about it, man. Our pick is going to match up here in this spot. Unfortunately, we're going to go with Colby Covington for myself. I do think he gets the dub. He is the favorite, so 1 point on the line for our contest. Now, pick number 2. Oh, this is kind of a sketchy main card, if I'm being honest, man. It's hard to pick another option here. And I like to get a little crazy. I'm trying to push the envelope here, pad that record, make that lead a little bit wider. But this ain't the spot. I'm going to go with Kevin Holland. I think Kevin Holland gets the job done. He's another relatively sizable favorite. I don't want to be just the chalk eater always making the safe picks. But this is a tough week on this particular card, in my opinion. How about you, man? Where are you going this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Colby Covington as well in the main event, like you said. And I got some ground to make up. We only got 4 events left in this first edition or this first season that we got, right? I believe we're doing it every 3 months that we're going to reset the score. So I got to make up some ground. So I got to look for an underdog on the main card here. And there's only one that popped out to me that we talked about a little bit earlier. I am going to take the shot here. I'll go with Edson Barboza as a plus 145 dog. If he wins, that nets me 2 points and hopefully closes the gap with me and Clint here. So yeah, I like Edson Barboza. Usually has solid takedown defense. You got to have a really good chain wrestling game to really get him to the floor and take advantage of him there. We saw him do very well against Makwan Amirkhani. And even though Amirkhani scored 3 takedowns in that fight, 2 of those takedowns, specifically in the first and second round, they seemed to be right at the end of the round, where Edson just kind of let his hands go a little bit more loose than it was for the previous part of the round, and that ultimately gave up the takedown there. But if he's able to keep mind his P's and Q's, keep it sharp, keep it disciplined, he could possibly touch up Bryce Mitchell from distance. And I will say this, I don't think Bryce Mitchell's fought a striker like Edson Barboza at any point in his career. And I think he's going to have to respect closing the range here. Sometimes he does it in a desperation fashion. If he does that here against Edson Barboza, his head could be flying into the rafters with a knee or something like that, or a beautifully timed kick from Edson Barboza. So, in the sake of trying to make up the deficit that I'm at here, I'm going to go with the underdog here with Edson Barboza. If I wasn't at a deficit, I'd probably take like Kevin Holland or Rafael Dos Anjos. But we got to get risky, boys. We got 4 events left. I'm going to go with Edson Barboza. So let's move it forward to the next event, which is headlined by a light heavyweight scrap between Thiago Santos and Magomed Ankalaev. You know for sure I'm going with Magomed Ankalaev in the main event. There's a reason he's in my stonk portfolio. There's a reason he's one of my favorite light heavyweights on the roster right now. That guy's striking is absolutely phenomenal. And mix that in with a nasty takedown game, I think he has Thiago Santos covered pretty much everywhere in this matchup. I think he takes home an easy L. Now, underdogs on this main card are very tough to come by. I haven't done my research on the card yet. That actually starts for me tomorrow. None of them really stick out to me, honestly. You got Carl Roberson as a dog. You got Ricky Glenn as a dog. You got Alex Caceres as a dog. Bruno Silva as a dog. I believe Bruno Silva is the dog. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, Bruno Silva is currently sitting at plus 140. He's a dog. And then Marlon Moraes as the dog. None of those pique my interest, Clint. None of them. Zilch. So I'm going to go with the safer pick. I'm going to go with my guy Song Yadong as my second selection. Minus 220-ish favorite at this point in time. Minus 250, I should say. I think he goes out there and knocks out Marlon Moraes. Survives early. There's always that early threat for Marlon Moraes. But I think if he survives that, I don't care where Marlon Moraes is training right now. I know he's down there in Thailand, I think at Tiger Muay Thai. Unless they're surgically inputting a third lung into his body, there's no way I'm backing Marlon Moraes. There's just not. There's clearly something he was doing earlier in his career where he could go a solid 5 rounds without sucking wind. But good God, has it looked horrible over his last couple fights. And I think Song Yadong brings it out of him once again and possibly finishes him in the second round. So for this card, Magomed Ankalaev in the main event, Song Yadong, I believe that's the co-main event slot. What do you got for UFC Vegas 50?
Man, I'm going to keep it quick because I will absolutely agree with you on Magomed Ankalaev in the main event there. So we're going to side with the favorite on the same side 2 weeks. in a row. And like you, I don't plan that far out ahead. So I have not done my research. So I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here in this spot. But I'm going to go with Sadiq Youssef to go ahead and get the win over Alex Caceres. I know that Bruce Leroy has turned a bit of a corner. I know he is kind of rounding out his MMA game, but I do think that this is that sell high spot for him and for the UFC where they've said, you know what, you strung together a couple of wins. People know your name. You're a fun guy. But Sadiq Youssef is the real prospect that we're looking to get behind here in this spot. So I really think Sadiq Youssef goes out there, gets another dub, and walks away with an extra point for me in this competition.
I'm hoping one of those guys whiffs for you, even though I'm actually picking all of them to win for this goddamn competition, though. And for the sake of my liver, I'm hoping that I don't have to do a power hour,
baby.
Yeah, that goes down. All right. Last segment, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Clint, let's find out a little bit more about each other. Let's get deep.
Let's get deep.
All right, one of my favorite segments on the show, because we always get a little bit of jokes or some fun stories out of this. So I think we got a great question for this week. We are going to go with what clubs and or extracurricular activities were you involved in during high school?
So for me, Locke, I was not the power nerd that appears before you today in high school. I was actually a jock way more than anybody realized. I was a starter on the football team, ran track, wrestled. I did everything in high school. So all of my extracurricular activities were sports related. I was in every single sport year round the clock. So always had something going on after school. And then I was very active actually in my church growing up. So the only other thing that I really did was a bunch of like youth group church type activities. Those were the two things that really dominated my young life growing up. So, real quick and easy answer for me on that one.
Lucky you. Staying very busy with extracurricular activities.
For me, I would have gotten in trouble if I wasn't.
Makes sense. Maybe you'd be a little bit more thuggish come 2022 if you are doing some other things after school. But for myself, starting point guard for basketball from grade 6 to grade 9. Then the fact that I'm 5'5" came back and bit me in the ass, and everybody just started getting taller and getting much better than me. That's where my extracurricular stuff stopped. I ended up getting into the band, music band as well, with the hopes of playing drums, but drums already filled up. So what do I get? The goddamn baritone. I'm sitting over there just trying to hated every second of it, but needed those credits. So I make sure I was pretty much at every single recital, all that shit. I did, I made some good friendships and relationships with it. So I didn't mind it too much after that, but doing it was very much a bit of a piss off for me. The last thing actually I was a part of, and I'll share this story in maybe the next podcast because it takes a little bit of time, but I was a part of something called DECA, which is pretty much a business program for all of Ontario up here in Canada, where the top business students from every school come together in Toronto, and they have a conference, and they just, they give them hypothetical scenarios where you come up with a marketing plan, all that type of shit, and then present it to a board, and then they give out awards based on that. But those 2 nights, that weekend was probably the most memorable weekend for me in high school because of what ensued after that. And again, I'm not going to tell the whole story here. We'll save it for the next podcast, but it involved getting a teacher fired. And it involved
some breadcrumbs. Tune in next week.
Yeah, some craziness. So I'll be sure to tell that story next week, but probably one of the craziest things to ever happen in my life. Regardless, that's all I did extracurricular. Basketball from grade 6 to grade 9. Then I got too short. Band, and then I was a part of DECA as well. So there you guys have it. Some icebreaker stuff for me and Clint.
It's funny, Locke, actually, I have a very similar tale when it comes to basketball. I didn't have any problem with the height whatsoever, but I was an early sprouter. We took pictures when I was in junior high school. All my friends' heads are here. Like, I was a giant when I was in that age. So I was very successful at basketball. And then all of a sudden, everybody else caught up, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't play basketball anymore. It's because your boy can't hit a damn shot. I was nicknamed Mr. Rebound when I was in like 7th grade because nobody could get above me to grab the dang ball. And then as soon as everyone else caught up and they were also able to score, it was like, yeah, we don't really need you anymore. So I kind of got ushered out that way as well. Man, this was a fun show.
Sorry. I'll say this. I have a mean jumper. Like I can get some range, but my handles were just not, progressing as much as everybody else is. So you got like 7 turnovers a game for your boy as I started getting up there in grade 9 and grade 10, but is what it is.
Did you see that gif of the Lakers where he throws like the full court pass and it goes into the 7th row? That's me shooting free throws. Like that's what it looks like when I try to take a shot. So yeah, it all culminated in me ruining a tournament for my team because we were down by 1 point. The ball hits me. I'm like just 1 step inside the 3-point line, and I've got a split second where I could maybe pass the ball to somebody else, but I couldn't see anybody open instantaneously. So I took the shot and we lost the damn tournament. I didn't hear anything from anybody for 2 weeks. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm done with basketball.
I'll stick to wrestling.
I'm just going to quit.
That is hilarious. Traumatic, but also hilarious.
A little traumatic because we did like a journal entry day in our English class, and one of the guys wrote about it. He didn't name me specifically, but I'm sitting there going, oh, like nobody in the English class knows that it's me, but I know that it's me, that you're writing the worst day of your life was when we lost the tournament because the guy who can't shoot took the final shot. Like, yeah, I'm going to quit basketball. Like,
so you're waking up in arm bars or you're waking up with the ball in your hand at the last second. I get it. Now I know Clint's nightmares.
It's what it is on the basketball is my betting ticket for Misha Serkinov. And if I can get it in the hoop, I win. But instead, like I keep missing. And then Misha is like sitting over on the bench staring at me. And Wellington Turman is like walking up slowly behind me. And every shot that I miss, he's getting closer. Like that's.
Oh my God. You're killing me, Clint. Fuck, that's hilarious. God damn.
Oh man. Thank you all so much for showing up for this exciting episode of the Deadlock Podcast. Seriously, those of you guys who tuned in live for episode 1 here on the new channel, we love you guys. We appreciate you more than you have any idea. Help us out, spread the love, smash the like button for us. Of course, I've got my Die Hard MMA podcast coming up again on Monday, as always, next week over on Pub Sports Radio. Keep an eye out for that undefeated Friday post weigh-in show. Looking forward to the big fights this weekend. Locke, where can the people find you, and what else do you have going on?
I can no longer say right here on my channel because this is the Deadlock Podcast channel. So make sure you guys go check me out. I've actually changed it to Manpreet Jazz now is my YouTube channel name. Still going by MMA Lock tonight. Still going by MMA LOTN, which is where you guys can obviously find me on social media. But the one big thing that I really want to push is this Coach's Main Event Marathon. 2nd episode dropped today. I have James Krause, Cody Donovan, and Tyson Chartier breaking down the main event of this weekend's card, as well as the competition portion of that show, where all 6 of the coaches are giving me their main card selection, putting $100 on it, and then we're putting them all up against each other and see how they all do. So if that interests you guys, please check out my channel. Please check out that show. Tweet it out, share it, do everything you guys got to do because those coaches are having fun, but I want to show them that it's actually worthwhile with solid views, solid interactions, all that type of stuff. So make sure you guys go check that stuff out. Tomorrow, propping you up with me and Cody Saftik is going to be over on the All-Star because it is a pay-per-view week. So make sure you guys don't miss that. That's going down 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Friday, I'll announce it here. Ultimate Weigh-In Show 2:30 p.m. Eastern. So half an hour right after the weigh-ins conclude, I'm going to be going live with Mike Constantino. He used to be from the AMA Fight Club, used to be Khabib's head coach back in the day, used to be Jim Miller's coach back in the day, trained a lot of those guys in the Northeastern region. Now he's doing a lot of gambling stuff himself, and he's actually in 2nd place in the high stakes lock of the night challenge. So the guy knows a thing or two about gambling as well. So make sure you guys tune in on Friday to hear his takes as well. That's about it for me, Clint. A ton of stuff, but that's about it.
We are busy as hell between the two of us, Locke. So, you know what? I want to leave everybody with just the thought. Make sure you take some time for yourself out there. Make sure you get the rest and relaxation that you need. It's important to have that work-life balance. And while you're at it, take a little extra time for Locke and I, because I'm not practicing what I preach whatsoever. We are grinding everything straight into the dirt over here to bring some awesome content to you all. Hey, everybody get out there, have a damn good time, and make sure you surprise somebody with a cupcake this week. Have a good one, everybody. We'll catch you next episode.
Peace.